Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Southborough School Committee meeting of May 10th. It is 6:33, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, audience. First item on tonight's agenda is the election of officers. And at this time, I would like to recommend that we receive nominations for the appointment of chairperson. Southborough School, oh, that was way too fast.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Desmond.
I'd like to
I don't know that
Jerry
move.
Capper for chairman.
I will second that motion.
And so we have a motion, and a second, and do we need an all-in vote? Okay. Jerry, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass this along to you. That's right. That's a round of applause.
Yeah, right.
I'm thrilled to present you with your first gavel and platform.
And I think we need a motion for the vice chair.
I'll nominate Mary Beth Strickland as vice chair.
And I will second.
You have to take a vote.
Oh, can we have a vote?
Sure, yes. Move the vote. Oh,
There we go.
Mr. Desmond, is your hand going to go up as fast for secretary? And I think we need a secretary?
Oh, that's right.
I will nominate Paul Desmond.
Did you want a second?
I'll second that.
And a vote?
All right,
That was fast.
cool.
Let's not forget the union officers.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
because do we
That's
have
right.
a combined union meeting
Well,
next week?
You know, that's a great question, because
was looking at my calendar.
in your e-box, probably already, is a doodle poll
Okay.
for next Wednesday's combined meeting. That's an additional combined meeting that we added to our meeting slate, so that we could reduce the time in June, so that the lights don't go out while we're in session, like last June. And so what we're proposing is to flip the regional meeting with the combined meeting and start region at about 6 or 6:30. That would allow us to just seamlessly move into the combined meeting, where Northborough has not voted their, actually their school committee officer team yet. So they will vote for it first, and then we were going to take the vote for the superintendency union. But I
Gotcha.
think we could do that this evening and be prepared for that
Right.
meeting next week, and that's one less thing we have to add to the agenda.
Yep.
And then we're planning to go on with the combined agenda and move into executive session, so we should be.
So we should do our union, we have to do union.
Yeah,
Yep.
it would get that one
Yep.
extra vote done.
And next year, Northborough's chair of the union?
Northborough, Southborough, Northborough has the regional, Northborough had the regional chair this year, the regional chair will pass to Southborough.
So union
which
chair
means the
will pass,
union
chair
chair,
will
yeah,
pass to Northborough.
To Northborough.
Gotcha.
And again, they haven't had their election yet, because the election was just last
Right.
night, so
Right.
they'll take that at combined next week.
Gotcha.
So.
Now that we have logistics. Okay.
So do I have a I guess we're going to have two now. I think the chair automatically is in the union, so the motion will
Legally
be
has
two.
to.
Yeah, so there'll be two motions?
Right, and it's usually by seniority on the committee.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so do I have a motion for,
I'll make a
I'll
motion.
nominate Mary Beth Strickland.
And I will nominate Paul. There we go.
and I will second both.
That's fantastic. We have our officer slate for,
I think we have to vote.
You have to vote.
Yeah.
You have to say all in favor.
And all in favor?
There we go.
great.
And so now we need to move into the public hearing. Now, do we just
Move right into it.
move right into
yeah.
the
And
public
then-
hearing on school choice?
Yeah, and then after, we just move right into the agenda.
Okay.
Yep. So this time of year, we always have an opportunity to identify whether our district will become a district of choice. And so it begins generally with a discussion, a brief discussion on school choice. And I'll provide a brief overview of the school choice option and highlight its components. The chairperson, once we complete this, will welcome any discussion on this topic, and then we'll close the public hearing. And we'll take a vote as to whether or not we will choose to be a district of choice next year, later on in the regular agenda. So Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B, requires that each year, the school committees consider whether their district should be in the school choice program during the upcoming school year, so next year, 17-18. If they choose not to accept the school choice pupils from other districts, again, we must take this vote prior to June 1st, and we are required to report the results to the Department of Education. If we do not take this vote by June 1st, we automatically become a school choice district. This vote is recorded and forwarded to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Historically, Southborough Public Schools has not been a participant in the school choice option, and it is my recommendation again this evening to the Southborough School Committee that we do not, again, choose to participate in the FY 2018 school year. Students who are enrolled under school choice are entitled to remain in the Southborough Public School District through grade 8. My recommendation this evening is consistent with prior recommendations, as the school choice program has not significantly changed from year to year. Based on current fluctuation of class enrollments that we revisit each month and pay particular attention to as we go through a school year, is one particular point why, again, we are making a recommendation not to be a district of choice. We monitor our class sizes and certainly want to ensure that our class sizes that we have now are consistent with our class policy within the community. The impact on enrollments in successive years, since that child is allowed and has the option to remain in our school district, it's often hard to predict with move-in sometimes whether there's a spike in any given year, and so that might move our class sizes over our most desirable recommended class sizes. The $5,000 reimbursement per child hasn't changed since, I think, 1992, when the school choice option came into be in existence, and we know, of course, through our discussions around the foundation budget review, that a lot of those numbers have changed considerably up, but the foundation formula has not. And so that, for us here in Southborough, really is less than a third of our per pupil cost in terms of reimbursement. And another point that we always consider is what are our neighboring districts do with respect to school choice, and most are not identified as districts of choice. So that is, and those are my recommendations, and I know we'll be taking a vote during the agenda.
Any discussion?
We have to ask if there's a, it's a
Oh,
public.
okay. Does anybody want to speak on this issue? Okay. So I guess we can move into the first item on the agenda.
Absolutely, we have to close.
Do we have to close the public meeting?
Close the public hearing.
Okay, do I have a motion to close the public meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
And do I have a second, and do we have to do a roll call?
No, not for
No.
this. There's no money involved.
Okay, all in favor?
Great.
Great. So now we can move on to the first item, and that's audience sharing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to share, or anyone in the room that would like to share anything? Okay, so we can move on from audience sharing to new business, and the first item is the Trotter Middle School Improvement Plan.
This is always an exciting time for us. I think Trotter is the grand finale of all the school improvement plans each year. And I know Keith and Gary have been working very diligently and are excited about presenting the new plan for Trotter Middle School. This is not an update, right? It's a 2017-2019 school improvement plan. And as always, our plans are aligned with our strategic plan, Vision 2020. And it's always interesting to see how each of our schools really embrace those areas of focus that we've articulated in our plan and make them come alive in their own schools and guide them for continual growth. So this evening, I think, and you brought Johnny Cash with you too as well tonight.
Well, as always, we really enjoy this opportunity to talk about what's ahead for Trotter in the next few years, and certainly talk about what we've done. And Gary and I are going to combine and talk tonight about two main focus of our presentation. One is a science showcase. So we're going to describe where we've been and where we are now with the next generation science standards. We brought that up a few months ago, and I'll make sure we showcase that for you. And then we'll get into the actual school improvement plan for 2017 to 2019. I am joined by a crew of Trottierrites back there, including the man in black. School council members. Pam Lunder is in the way back there. She doesn't want to be identified. She's back there in the trench coat. And Megan Leone's in the white sweater there on the left. And certainly, Jamie Clark is one of our teachers, is our band director at Trottier, and he will be making an appearance later on in the presentation. He's actually part of the grand finale. That's why he's dressed in black.
Does that mean the band's just marching?
They were just practicing downstairs. You could hear him actually, but he told them to kind of hush it a little bit, which I appreciate. So, but the first thing we're going to do is talk about science at Trottier. Gary's going to be showing the crosswalk that's been made between the old curriculum and the new, and then at the end we have some really nice images of students at work with the new stuff, and we've really found it to be transforming how science has been taught at Trottier. So Gary's going to take it from here.
So as Keith mentioned, I think with the next generation standards, it really required our department to be reflective about going forward, and they had to do, make some major adjustments to the curriculum, and there was an overhaul, and it was really a 3-year journey. And there was a lot of work that was done, a lot of planning, and a lot of thoughtful conversations that had taken place, not just with our own department members, but also with Milliken as well. And I think that one of the most important things that came out of this process was not only did we change what was being taught, I think more importantly, we changed how it's being taught. I think if you're going to look, when you start looking at the next generation standards and how we're applying them on a regular basis here at Trottier, what we're seeing more and more is students doing science. And that's very healthy, and I think it's really refreshing and really cutting edge, and I think students are enjoying it more and more. So the next 3 slides, as Keith mentioned, is you're going to see kind of the crosswalks and the changes that are taking place, and on the left-hand column was the prescribed standards from 2006 to 2014 and the new standards. And what you have to realize is that this planning was very methodical. Because it was a 3-year process, we had to ensure that every student here at Trottier was exposed to the standards over 3 years. So in some cases, we had 2 grade levels teaching the same units to ensure that as we made the transition, every student, was exposed to that. So for some teachers, they would only teach a unit for 1 year, but they had to do it to make sure that 3-year journey was complete. So I really want to applaud our science department members because it's
part of it. I remember Algonquin had to do that when they switched there.
And although it was taxing and although it was draining, I think what it did is it brought our teachers together, and that collaboration was critical. And I think whenever our teachers are talking about teaching and learning, that's when the best products come to life. So, in the 6th grade,
toggling back and forth between the grades, just as you've been talking.
Yep. So the 6th grade, science changes. One of the things that jumped out at us is that cells and the cell processes went into 6th grade, which is pretty rigorous and pretty difficult. But I think with the use of our tech books, which has been an online learning tool, it really has helped students conceptualize these ideas. Grade 7 has really looked at the Earth's hydrosphere, and they really use a lot of case studies, especially around water studies and how it's impacting society today. And then 8th grade, something that's jumped out is really the unit around genetics and heredity.
Chemistry.
Oh, and then the other thing that's been exciting is the chemistry of food, which has really been kind of an ongoing and popular trend for all of us to investigate and look at. And I think kids are really being reflective about how food is constructed, what's going into our bodies, and has provided a lot of thought around that process as well. That you've seen over the last couple years the evolution of our technology education program. 2006, 2014, we had kind of, those were the units of study, and those were the standards, and we kind of had a workshop environment. With your help and your support over the last years, we've made that transition from a workshop to more of a STEM experience for our students. I think some of you have been able to see the STEM labs and see what's going on a regular basis between the computers, the CAD program, the 3D printers. And so this is how the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade technology education is now lining up. For our sixth graders, the engineering design process is really the foundation of their work, and that's carried out throughout the 3 years. Our seventh graders have really embraced the building projects and the design challenges, which Mrs. Folsom, Mrs. Klein, and Mrs. Riley are exposing our students to. And in eighth grade, I think one of the highlights certainly is the robotics unit, which we'll talk a little bit more about. You know, as I mentioned before, one of the exciting things about the new curriculum is that it's how our teachers are presenting this. And what you're going to see in the next couple of slides is that the collaborative process which our students are engaged in on a regular basis has really been enriching for both teachers and students. One of our science teachers says it's taking it a little getting used to, you know, but now they are facilitators of learning and they're moving to the side. I think what's wonderful is that they're setting expectations, they're giving guided learning, but then they're putting kids at the lab tables and the kids are doing the work. And part of every assignment and every lab experience is not just about the finished product, but the process as well. In education, we like to say that learning can be messy. And I think the next two slides would indicate that. This is one of the, next to the bubble gum lab, which our sixth graders are engaged in. The experiment is one of their favorites, where they get to, you know, investigate how a membrane of an egg works and eventually make some observations, weigh the eggs and the membranes and make some predictions. And
Vinegar and stuff.
yeah, and how it changes once it's exposed to vinegar and different liquids. This was also seen with our seventh grade science curriculum, where they actually conducted a compost in the classroom over a course of a month and a half. And so each class was able to construct a compost throughout the weeks. They were able to make observations. They were able to weigh the mass and make predictions. One week, you know, the mass had spiked up. There, you know, questions like why did we see changes and where would it go? So again, and what you see right there in the bottom right-hand corner is the observation process, and students are writing their reports based on this work.
That got pretty funky.
Yeah, and we were glad to see it end. Okay, great,
Like that.
but yeah.
Got it.
Again, another lab where they are looking at the properties of water and also you know, doing their own experiments with water. They, you know, measured pH levels and you know, also looked at, you know, buoyancy and some and adhesion and some other properties of water. The technology education. This slide is, you know, is an indication of what's happening in the seventh grade, where they are beginning to program their robots. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a robot here tonight to do the Rubik's Cube. I apologize. I know that was a favorite. But what this demonstrates is really kind of the evolution of the process, where students would have to program their robot to just make a simple line. And then they'd have to go back, and that simple line went from making a right turn to another turn to eventually trying to make a perfect square. And I will tell you, one of the most exciting things about this was there's a great deal of trial and error. You know, no group is successful the first time, but the resiliency and the planning and the thoughtfulness and kids keep on coming back to the drawing board until they met the goal was pretty exciting. Yeah. One of the highlights in eighth grade is the weather unit. Part of this adventure is that the students have to track the weather over, you know, I think it's a 2 or 3 week period, and make predictions about the weather. They compile the reports and they report out. And one of the capstone pieces that we've had in the past is we've actually had a meteorologist, Bree Eggers from Channel 7, come and speak to her, our students about her experiences as a meteorologist and the challenges and all things weather, all exciting elements about weather.
And Christine participates in this unit every year. She predicts snow days. Yeah, we'll get to the winter months. Yeah, maybe.
This was an exciting unit as well for our eighth graders around genetics. I had the good fortune to watch this lab experience come about. So Mrs. Swibu was able to kind of take a complicated idea around you know, DNA pairings, and using beads and pipe cleaners, had kids, you know, assemble the DNA strands and had them, you know, recognize the relationship between the strands. In addition, a student then gave a presentation on CRISPR, which is a genetic editing tool. And the way he spoke about it, it sounded as if he was in an interview with Genzyme. Not only was he talking about the science behind it, it also lent itself to the ethical and moral questions around genetics, which was really powerful for the kids to see.
Sparks some good debate.
The next 3 slides you're going to see is kind of the evolution of the structure lab. And on the left-hand side, what you're seeing is the 2D drawing on graph paper. And the goal for our students was they needed to, based on a particular climate, geography, and weather elements, they needed to design and build a structure that would withstand those elements. Those elements included, heat, cold, rain, and so what they needed to do is initially draw their model using a 2D drawing. They then transfer that to the 3D version using Tinkercad to the final version here of their finished product. Students then had the opportunity to take their structure and test them. They were placed in freezers. They were exposed to heat, and we also have a earthquake simulator, and so some structures had to withstand that. Some were very successful, some were not. But again, the doing of science, the process, and the reflection have all been critical in this work.
So that's it. Yeah, okay. So I think before we jump into the school improvement plan, I kind of want to go back to these crosswalks that existed with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and wondered if anyone had any questions about science or science as a whole. We'll do our best to answer them, but we're probably not the ones that should be answering these questions.
We were 2 social studies teachers.
Exactly. We can put on a good show, but I don't know if we can answer all the questions, so wanted to toss that to you guys, see if there was anything in particular you had a question about. Who wants to do the extreme weather project? I think
I like that one.
I like that one, yeah. I think that, I like to do a lot of these things. And Gary's right, it really has transformed. It's not just about what. This is the what, but it's the how. And we try to demonstrate that through the pictures. And that's what we're seeing. So we're going in the classrooms, we're seeing that level of collaboration, we're seeing that level of inquiry and observation, seeing the kids kind of look at the composting and kind of twisting it and turning it. Granted, it's completely nasty and disgusting, but they are genuinely looking for trends. They're looking for their observations, and then they're applying that to a set of questions and how they analyze that. And it really can come together pretty nicely. So that's 6th grade, just to get another glance at that. 7th grade. 7th grade probably had the most overall change of going to different parts of science than the other grades collectively, and they had the most challenge of the way, the weaving that Gary described of, one unit here, one unit here, and kind of making sure it all worked together. 7th grade had a lot to do in the last couple of years to make sure it happened well. And the depth of the 8th grade is certainly there, challenging our students. So good. Any questions outside? Yeah.
One question is, how do there's been a pretty significant change in the curriculum.
Yeah.
And how have the kids adjusted to that? Do they seem to like the new curriculum better, or
I
are they more involved or
I mean, I
engaged?
think, there's probably some home runs in terms of the curriculum, but
Yeah.
I think the processes in which they're being exposed to and the lab experiences are really enriching.
Right.
And the other thing that's also taking place is that they're looking at current trends. And I think when you start looking at things that impact the world around them, it just becomes more meaningful.
Yeah.
And that's being brought in more and more. And so the case study work that our teachers are exposing our students is just really making this work a little bit more significant, and there's a stronger personal connection to the science.
So what I'm gathering is that there's more time in the lab now than there used to be.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Classroom, right? It's
That's
almost
important.
like there's not separate labs from, it seems like it's just.
It's
much
part of the
more
fabric of
combined.
it's part of the fabric of the room.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Far less textbook. We're utilizing
Yep.
technologies. We're utilizing experiments. We're doing a lot of hands-on work. And I do, and Gary did, and I'll say it again. I give a lot of credit to the teachers because it was a transformation. We call it a crosswalk. You can call it whatever you want, but it made the world different. And it was a lot of work. But I think they took it on and they wanted to stay a step ahead. And they were able to do that as the state was making final decisions about the standards. I felt like we were at least 1 or 6 months ahead of the trend to make sure we were able to sustain whatever was going to come. And ultimately, there weren't major curveballs, but enough that we had to make some final adjustments as the final 2014-16 curriculum came together. So.
I just feel like that kind of learning, at least the kind of learner I am, the reinforcement of actually learning it, then doing it, and then reflecting on it has a lot better chance of sticking long-term.
Yeah.
The way you describe it, it seems that's the formula, a level of direct instruction, great amount of time used for application, and then reflecting upon the processes.
So way better chance of retention going forward.
I'd agree. They'll remember. They'll remember the lab. They'll remember the experiences. Yeah, sure.
What's been the effect on homework?
I would say overall less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a combination of, additional time in class, combined with these experiences, homework looks, I think homework is looking and feeling differently, as opposed to go home and answer the questions at the end of this section of the textbook. They're being, whether they're reflecting about, I think a lot of the reflection is part of that process, writing up some observation reports and making some predictions as well based on their experiences in the classroom.
And that also allows us an opportunity for differentiation to challenge those kids moving forward. You can even do it within some of the experiment. What was the experiment we were talking about that really allowed for that challenge?
Oh, it was the DNA. It
The
was
DNA,
yeah,
yes. So it wasn't just the simple strand and let's play with pipe cleaners and beads. It was taking that to the next level, and our kids were really challenged through that level of differentiation. So, some of our students were getting it on a very basic level, but then other students really getting involved with the advancement of, genetics and certainly some of those other more, topical things. So it definitely took off in that direction. More question about science? All right, super. We're going to transition into the years to come. So the 2017-2019 school improvement plan. Okay, as Superintendent Johnson mentioned, our school improvement plan is aligned with the district strategic plan, and we are setting forth 4 goals for our school in the years to come. One is school climate and culture, which seems to be a continual goal for us at Trotter. Certainly goal 2, the advancement of curriculum instruction and assessment. Goal 3, comprehensive review of inclusion practices. And goal 4, the comprehensive learning environments for 21st century learners. And what I'm going to do tonight is not necessarily go into any depth about one, but showcase 3 different aspects of this plan that we're hoping to achieve in the years to come. A little bit of it is a history lesson, but it's also where we're going next. The first is coding, and as Kathleen and Jim have mentioned in previous presentations, coding is starting at the kindergarten level, and it has certainly evolved up our way, where we started out as having an 8th grade elective, where students were getting in a very simple programming features, but now we are starting to take those next step with more advanced programs that are being offered, and certainly a level of logic and reasoning that's kind of outlined with a computational thinking on the right. These types of phrases and words are not only being embedded in the coding, but also with other instructional units within the Trotter experience. So coding is kind of something that we're really embarking on. I think we have a decent foundation, and we're moving in the right direction. So we're very eager about what's to come with coding. One thing we embraced this year was a national program called Hour of Code, and it's the first time we've done it, but we invited parents that are part of corporations that really sponsor these types of events. We invited all the students to come here to the library after school to get the very basics. So these kids would not be in the coding elective for 8th graders. These are more 6th and 7th graders that got an experience, and I think 10 or 12 kids took us up on it. But more importantly, it was the 30 kids that wanted to go that really showed that we had a genuine interest in this area, and we're hoping, with the help of Sandy Scordato, our tech integration specialist, more opportunities like this. And this is one of the highlights of our presentation tonight. The coding elective is for 8th graders, and 3 of our 8th graders were able to put together a video for you. Barathon Sundar, Gavin Weinberg, and Ben Westball were able to put together this minute-and-a-half video that really captures, I think, well, much more of my, than my understanding, it's theirs, starting from a blank sheet, going to a finished product. And I think you're going to enjoy this. So hopefully things load correctly, right, Mrs. Valenti? Must be the time of day, Kathleen. It doesn't like us at this hour. Gary, how many times does this work earlier?
5.
5. Friday, 5.
Well, the
Saw 'em all times,
six
yeah.
try is always the charm.
Wow. Try again. Here we go.
We are Ben, Gavin, and Barathon. We worked on creating a mobile app in MIT App Inventor 2 beta during our computer coding class. This was a game app based on the classic Space Invaders game. None of us has had experience coding before, but we started the class doing some work creating games in Scratch with block coding. This experience allowed us to easily transfer those skills and transition into the mobile app inventor.
This is a screenshot of the blank App Inventor screen that we started with. After watching a video tutorial on how to create a very simple game, we were able to apply those skills to create a few more basic games. We asked other students in the class to play them. We got a lot of feedback. This is extremely helpful, and we were able to make necessary revisions so the game could evolve. Eventually, we developed a much more complicated game. The process was very much an experimental series of attempts using trial and error. Overall, we used a number of different methods and skills to develop this game, which we now call Squirrel Invasion. We put the app on Barathon's phone, so here's Barathon with a demonstration of Squirrel Invasion.
And that is the story of how we created our app.
It's no Rubik's Cube, but it certainly shows you
Just gonna say.
where it can go. And these 3 boys were kind enough to spend time putting this together. And I asked them to do a very basic thing. Show me where it started and show me where it ended, and do it in less than 2 minutes. And I think they put together quite a nice little capture of that. So that was Barathon and Gavin and Ben at work. So that's the current status of coding for us. Sandy, like I mentioned before, has really explored some other options, and we've offered some experimental electives for 6th graders, and we're hoping that just continues to expand under her guidance, as well as our librarian, Mrs. Audrey Allenson. So next steps are ahead. Coupled with that, as part of Goal 4, is really looking at 21st century learning environments. And that picture on the right is not what's happening now, but that is something that we'd like to achieve. And it does look pretty normal and pretty regular as far as a classroom is concerned, but the ability to have an environment like this will allow us to maximize the pedagogy, technology, and space that we have here, but do it in a way that makes things easier. And the best way I can describe this is, if you're in a classroom with rows of desks, and you want students to turn and talk for a 30-second conversation, they literally have to pick up and move. In this particular case, you'll see the casters on the chairs. The writing tablets are removable. Those students can very easily turn into each other for that 30 seconds and then go back to the presentation portion. Or be pulled aside and be at like more of a bar height table to just have a different type of environment. And Kathleen and I were able to participate in a PD opportunity in December of this year where we were in spaces like this. And one of the other features that was pretty awesome about that is all of the walls were whiteboard. So what would happen is, depending on the different activity, groups could very quickly break up, and we weren't sharing one whiteboard. And it wasn't 3 feet high. It was the whole wall. And you really weren't hindered by any other type of those spatial things. You were really able to pull together your thoughts and not be confined by anything else. So Sandy has applied for a grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, to convert some of our classroom spaces for this furniture, as well as, you know, the carpeting and wall features. But it is something that we're aiming to do in the years to come. So 21st century learning environments, it's not just about the Chromebooks that are in the hands or the iPads. It's how we can integrate that into an experience that will allow us to really step forward in our collaboration. So really excited about where this might take us.
Now, the
Yeah, go, Jerry.
the whiteboards that you're talking about, are those the painted whiteboards?
A combination. These ones that we had experience with were actually physical panels.
Oh, they were physical
They
panels?
were.
Whiteboard
And they were whiteboard panels, full.
paint, but there's.
Not even, there is some paint, and that's gotten better over the years.
Yeah.
But having a complete wall panel,
Yeah.
I thought was pretty slick. It was
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. So this is the classroom of the future. And when I talked to some parents about this, when we were exploring this through different grant opportunities, this is what's happening in the private sector in some places.
It is happening.
Yeah.
For the level of collaboration.
Yeah.
And these types of chairs are literally the same ones I was sitting in December. So when Sandy came to me with this idea shortly after I returned, I'm like, oh my God, I was just in one of those things, and it was phenomenal. So I have firsthand experience on how this could definitely change how we go about things. Yeah, so it's exciting.
How much was the grant you were going for?
$80,000. Thank you, Sandy. Was that, yeah, it was $65,000 was the grant itself for one classroom. So, big bucks. Here we go. So, the last, Mr. Clark, would you mind joining me?
Okay.
So, we have had, well, I'll take us back 5 years, and some of you may or may not know, but 5 years ago, Trotter, yeah, you can join me over here. 5 years ago, Trotter was struck with the tragic loss of a 7th grade student named Eric Green. And one of the things that came from that unbelievable transforming experience was an opportunity for a community to come together. And one of the ways that happened, and it happened in many different ways, was in the band room. And Mr. Clark, the man in black to my right here, had an unbelievable impact on a group of students that were directly affected by Eric's loss. And over the course of a year plus almost, Meredith O'Brien, who is a parent here in Southborough, wanted to capture that experience that these kids were having. And she did. And she did a beautiful job in a book that is now published called Mr. Clark's Big Band. And 2 weeks ago? Is that 2 weeks ago? Just about.
Yeah.
Just about 2 weeks ago, we had the book launch party here at Trotter, attended by about 150 people. And it was an amazing community event. Superintendent Johnson was there, former superintendent Dr. Gabron was there, as well as our state representative, Carolyn Dykema, was there. And it wasn't just about grieving. It was about the community coming together. And it had a lot of former students, a lot of current students, the families were together, and it wasn't just about him. It was really about that whole experience that we all shared in one way or another. But certainly a focal point of that is certainly Jamie's role in connecting with these students. So in their gravest hour of need, there was someone there for them. And through it, and Gary says it very well, the book wasn't to make his head any bigger, because it's big enough.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. And it really wasn't about that. It was about how we were able to foster this level of community. So I wanted to certainly thank him for all his efforts, thank Meredith O'Brien for her efforts, and the community as a whole for capturing this experience and making it a celebration. I know you wanted to say a couple things.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. It's been a very surreal experience to kind of have this whole process go through. But it, my name's on the cover, but it really is a testament to the whole community. The faculty, the administration, the parents, just everybody. On that awful day when it happened, this school was filled with people trying to help children. I didn't know where they came from. It was just all of a sudden, everyone rushed to help. And a lot of times, you know, we hear about these disasters and, you know, there's a fundraiser and we give money and then it disappears. Well, this one stayed around for a long time and people stayed involved for a very long time. And we're very committed to helping each other. And I feel in a lot of ways that while I was the teacher in the classroom, I was learning more from the students as to how they cared for each other and helped one another and loved each other through this process. You know, this kind of tragedy is never easy to handle at any age, never mind when you're 11, 12, or 13, which if we all remember when we were those ages, that was hard enough just to deal with it in the beginning. But I am proud of the book. I think Meredith really captured the essence of the band room, but this kind of teaching and this kind of caring and support happens everywhere. And I'd like to thank Christine and Greg and Gary and Keith for allowing the teachers to do what we do best and do what we love most, and that's helping children grow and heal and becoming best versions of themselves. You guys know better than most that there's so much paperwork involved nowadays, forms to fill out, and from the head of the administration all the way through, they remove as much of that as they can so that we can teach and we can be with the kids. And they're always told, you know, take chances with your education, reach out to the kids. And I don't think that happens many places. So I'm very grateful to teach here. Like I said, I know my name is on the book, but there are many, many, many other teachers that have done that and more than I have. So thank you very much for the opportunity to teach here. And I hope to, I'm in year 15 and I have 15 more years left in me. So that's
There you go.
So thank you.
So as a token of appreciation for all the support we've gotten, Superintendent Johnson has allowed us to purchase a copy of the book for the school committee. So Mr.
That's
Clark will be
wonderful.
getting a copy out to everyone.
Welcome to the school committee.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you didn't know you were getting one, did you? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Roger, do you want
Roger,
to?
he sits here normally.
Oh, Roger, there you go. Roger that. Paul, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
So, yes, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
You need
Excellent.
to, you need to report back next month.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, one of the things I kind of wanted to go back to just for one quick second is when we look at these goals and we talk about technology and 21st century and curriculum and science and advancement, this wouldn't be possible if it weren't for people like this and the people that are out in that audience tonight as part of the people that are actually doing the interfacing with the students and genuinely caring about their experience. Certainly he's a testament to that, but we could have dozens of people up here now that do put forth, and that's why goal number 1 is school climate and culture, and this is a great example of that. So I thank you for this opportunity to share not only what we're doing presently, but what we're hoping to do in the future, and certainly Jamie's going to take all questions about the school improvement plan from this point on.
Not genetics.
Not genetics.
Engineering.
But thank you.
Can I just comment on this? I can't wait. Thank you for getting this. I'm excited to read
You can
it.
thank
And,
Christine, she took care of this.
what's that? Yeah.
Christine.
But I think, I can't wait to read this, and I think it is, as you said, sort of a tribute to our school environment, but also as a parent of 3 band children,
Bandites.
I know that was such a warm, welcoming environment that's always created in the band. So it, I'm sure, was just a natural transformation into helping through the grief, because that's such a core group of kids who are led fearlessly by you. So thank you. I'm looking forward. I'll pass it on to the kids.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say that, you know, my children were in the band, and my daughter, you know, even right into college, still is involved in music. So it really does change kids' lives. And it really changed the way that when she went into school, it changed the way she looked at courses and trying to adjust to get in, you know, all the different things that she does with music. So I thank all of you for that. It's been a big part of her life.
And a lot of schools don't have, and communities don't have the programs that we have, because
Right.
school committee members and administrators aren't necessarily supporting it or fighting for it. So, yeah, that's why I'm staying here.
There you go.
Well, are there any more questions, certainly for Jamie or for us on our plan? All right, it's going to be an interesting 3 years.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks for
guys.
making time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, pal. All right. All yours.
see Roger soon, or?
Hopefully next week.
You know what I'll
There's
do?
a combined,
No, I'll
there's
keep-
the
I'll keep it.
combined.
I'll keep
meeting
it and
next
just
week.
tell him I have it.
Okay.
You want
Oh, yeah, I can get it sent to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, I
you.
had
It's like
something to read. This is,
Well, I saw it, I was like, oh, I don't get a copy.
well, before we move to the next item on the agenda, gotta get my cheat sheet, there we go. I'd like to introduce our new school committee member, Katura Martin. Katura, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Exactly, we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your election.
very much.
You too, Paul, both of you.
Thank you.
Hard fought.
Thank goodness there wasn't a big write-in campaign or something.
There we go. But it had to be pretty big, so. Well, next on the agenda is the MCAS 2.0 update.
Well, not nearly as exciting perhaps as Trottier's school improvement plan, but nonetheless very much in support of the good work that you do here. And I think it's important to note that really what the comprehensive assessment system was all about was sort of assessing our curriculum and what is in place for the students in terms of content and participation. And all of the great work they've done, not only around the science standards, but with the math framework and the ELA framework across the grade level, is really evidenced through the participation of the MCAS experience for all students. This year was eventful, and we can't always say that about the MCAS test. Usually some years it's something that we move through, and we've always said it's a snapshot in time, and still I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart in terms of our appreciation for all of those other kinds of things that are equally as important that Keith referenced in his improvement plan and that we talk about. And so this year, it's really the second time we've tried online testing. For those of us that have been seated here before, about 4 or 5 years ago, we piloted Park. And this is the answer to all of those revisions of Keith smiling, because Trottier was sort of an adventurous spirit
Enjoyed
at
every
that
minute of
time
it.
and volunteered to pilot Park, and it really wasn't necessarily something that was required at that time, and likewise so MCAS 2.0. But we got together as a district and decided that, you know, while the test itself is in flux being, you know, up to and almost the times that we had to administer the test, changes were coming down about questions and formats and testing cycles and schedules and, you know, how do you respond using the online version. We felt that, you know, we were going to take a little bit of a risk and go out and be a little innovative and implement the online version. And this was implemented in Southborough, grades 3 to 8, because we knew that we wanted to give our children that experience of testing in an online environment while the test was somewhat still in flux, and have them have that experience. And it also tested our infrastructure. It tested whether or not we had enough technology ready to deploy for all of our students. And unfortunately, what it did also is make the MCAS experience a little bit more elongated, because the testing period has been significantly extended so that all districts and all schools can provide access for students with technology, and many districts have limited technology. We are, as we know, going to be 1-to-1 next year in grades 3 through 8, and pretty close to that in K 1 and 2. So this year, I think the science was the only prescribed paper test, so we're still, that's still paper deployment, if you will. And I think, you know, the people who are best able to answer, so what happened in their school when they implemented the test, and what were the reactions, most importantly, by our student population, and how comfortable were the teachers, are really the principals who can address specific questions in their schools. Overall, from the feedback and the conversations we've had, Greg has done a masterful job of making sure this was implemented. Our tech team, I think if there's one comment we heard that was consistent in all of our schools, it's that our tech team, the folks who help our teachers each and every day with technology, was right there, ready to address problems. They provided the PD and the training for our teachers to get comfortable with the testing environment, so they could create a climate where kids felt, our students felt comfortable testing. And overall, there were some, you know, any new experience, we're going to have a few glitches here and there, but I think the support was ready. Some of the glitches were not on our end. It was on DESI's side and the testing folks who were implementing this. But I think overall, for the first time out, all grades, all students, all in on the online version. I think overall it was pretty successful. It'll be interesting to see where and how the assessment data comes back to us, and earlier than we think, or they say, we'll receive it because of the online platform. And I think the one yahoo that came out of every school was not having to pack up all those boxes and counting all those documents. And that alone saved hours and maybe balanced against the time that it took to ramp up for 2.0. So, you know, just to Greg, to our administrative team, to all of the teachers, and to our tech team, you know, just kudos, tremendous accolades for making our students feel comfortable enough to feel like they were ready to be active participants in this process. And then, you know, the verdict's out. It's new, it's a statewide initiative, statewide testing, and I'm sure there will be changes to come, but we were all in, and our kids will be ready for the next, you know, the next experience. So, I don't, you know, if we want to get some feedback from the principals, Greg? Or not?
I think you spoke to Christine.
Okay.
It was a true team effort, beginning back in January or December. As principals, we met with Greg and really were, and technology, director of technology, really were planful about what's going to happen, what's it going to look like, and then with Sandy Scordato, I have to speak to her, creating scripts for us for teachers, meeting with teachers, really having the opportunities to work through the process, even throughout the testing days, to have that tech support. And as Christine said, there were DESI issues, and then we had some technology issues as well, but it was handled in a timely manner. Students, we're fortunate they have devices in their hands every day, so they helped us through the process as well. But all in all, it was, I appreciated it greatly when I was packing up only 2 boxes yesterday, and I had a conversation with the UPS man how thrilled he was not to be carting 8 boxes out from every school. So all in all, we'll see where it goes.
The other thing that I would add is that anytime you have something new, and the procedures were very different, so this was a whole new MCAS experience. And I think that for us, that we've done it for, you know, well over a decade in most cases, you know, it's changed. So you had to adapt, and there were some things that we, you know, certainly learned from going through it, and we're in the middle of it now. Actually, 7th grade is taking math, starting math tomorrow, so we're not done yet.
Still going.
Still going.
So yeah, we're still going on. We're going to finish up the beginning of next week with 6th grade math and 8th grade science and technology, which is still paper-based. So we still have the 2 platforms that we're dealing with, so we'll have a couple more boxes.
But I think we structured it so that there was enough technology support
Correct, yeah, I
at
was
each
gonna mention
building
that.
between
Yeah.
Woodward, Neary, and Trottier. And that's why Keith started a little bit later than us, but it actually worked out really well, because to be able to have that support staff in your building.
Oh, so the support
when
staffs from each
something-
school sort of were where the
Help.
testing was.
Fantastic, and they were on the phone with Pearson as soon as there was an issue, and Pearson reacted really quickly to any of our concerns, and they were able to troubleshoot issues that we were encountering, so it really worked out well.
It did. And we didn't encounter any problems with devices or Wi-Fi or anything. We had, I think on the first day, a little glitch where one particular student couldn't seem to maintain a connection, but our tech staff was right there and had it remedied within seconds. So it really didn't derail any of the momentum that had been gained or the experience for that child. So aside from that, Gary was on the front lines of it a lot, right in the thick of it the whole time. Is there anything you would add?
No, I think the preparation really spoke to the success of this. I give the teachers credit as well. They
Yeah.
gave some nice, there's a lot of online tools that the students can access. They took time in their classrooms to demonstrate what is at the child's disposal. I think that kind of came to light, especially during the math piece. Kids adjusted very well. One of the things that came up was they used to call it open response in the old MCAS version. Now they refer to it to essay. And for whatever reason, it just kind of, they had to, you know, adjust their thinking, you know, but, you know, they were great. Even we had to move some classrooms, but they kind of embraced the change a little bit, And
Some kids
really-
liked it.
Yeah, they really responded very well. So I think it's been a collaborative effort. We learn from one day to the next, and our 8th grade teachers would give us advice going forward, and we're streamlining the process as we go.
That's great.
Now, when the children run into like a technical snag, which I have some neighbors that told me about, some little technical snags. How does that get handled? Do they get, for example, if something happens and they get held up a little bit on the test or delayed, do they have additional time, or how does that work?
Well, they have all day to take this.
Okay,
They give a guideline of how long it should take,
Yeah.
and they did that with the paper-based as well, but we've always gone above and beyond
At least
that.
30% beyond the prescribed time.
Yes.
right. That's important, because that takes the time pressure off the student,
Correct.
especially when you're moving now to something that's electronically based. Things can happen, little snags that I'm sure.
And they did,
Okay.
but they also engage in online assessments with our
Right.
math program, so
Yeah.
they've
Right.
encountered issues like
Right.
this before. We did have one student that was timed out for quite a while. We were able to get on the phone with Pearson. We ended up switching to a Chromebook instead of using the iPad.
Yeah.
And it was great because the student had experience with both devices. So it was a seamless transition for
Yep.
the student. Pearson handled it quickly, and our tech support staff was able to make that change and
Right.
finish the test with his
And
classmates.
Pearson is the company that has the interface. That's where the
Yeah.
testing is occurring on their website. So they're the one, we'd call them for support around that, but then we'd call DESE for anything policy related. So we still
Yeah.
have 2 camps that we would be in contact with, depending on the issue.
Wow. Kudos.
You mentioned the Wi-Fi in passing, but did it uncover any infrastructure issues where we don't have adequate coverage maybe?
No, it actually, and during practice sessions and then during actual testing, we were pretty happy with how it performed. It held up, there weren't any lapses. We had a little interference kind of between access points, like, for example, there's a hub right against the wall over there, and it kind of picked up some students in the other room, and there was a little bit of cross, but then the tech team was able to see it very quickly and separate the overlap. So little things like that, and we had tested that prior a couple of times in the section of the building that we used, and actually that was the thing that kept me up the most, and it was the thing that went the smoothest. So I gotta say that I was very happy with how the infrastructure performed.
And will you, I totally understand why you sort of spread these out for the tech support. If once this sort of gets to a little bit more routine, we'll, just for your sake, be able to consolidate the testing time.
And be able to test more students at once.
Yeah.
We want to explore that, so it's a less of a disruption for the school.
Right.
Because right now, we're disrupting 12 days of school for MCAS.
Wow.
But it's mornings, and it's,
Right.
Yeah.
the kids are able to get a majority of their classes in, but it's 12 days that are disrupted.
But I understand, it makes sense why you did that.
Yeah,
And
and if we can reduce that to 8 next year, that would be great, but that's a combination of all the things we mentioned.
Exactly.
Working so that we can do it. But that's the goal, and Greg and I, and certainly Leo, we've talked about, let's experiment with that, not with MCAS next year, but before we get to that point, to make sure it's possible. So.
When you say disrupted though, what is it? Like, I know my kids said that some days they had to take classes in different rooms than normal.
Right.
Which
So
is. I
they
guess
would
that's
have
a
classes in different locations. Like, for
Specials.
example, if the 8th grade was testing, and that testing happened in the 6th grade wing, then the 6th graders were having their English class down in the 8th grade wing. And actually, the kids loved it, because they were in a different spot. They were in Mr. Brady's room for their first experience. And we set up some tools for them to be able to do that. The other thing that had happened is we had it wasn't the regular order of periods, so we had to disrupt the order of periods. So it was a combination, and it was challenging, but it was the location of the room and then the time of day that the class normally happened was slightly skewed. But we tried to bring it back as much as we could.
We did, and so at Neary, our specialist schedules
Yeah,
were
your special-
shifted,
mhm.
as well as our lunches, because if it's a testing grade level, we wanted them to have the later lunch, so that they had more time to finish their assessment. they're not done by lunchtime, we do a lot for time afterwards. But it's a shift. The students aren't missing anything, it's just,
Right.
teachers are very accommodating and willing to shift their schedules, and our specialists do the same to make sure that the students are still getting those experiences as well.
Now, you're saying it actually interferes, or you have 12 days of the school year that are involved.
Impact.
How does that compare to, let's say, 5 years ago? Has this number gone up? Or is
It did.
For grade 4 and 5, we have additional tests. In
Okay.
ELA, we have 3.
Okay.
instead
Sessions.
of
She has
2.
3 sessions instead of 2.
Okay, and that's because of ELA?
Additional
test.
ELA.
Additional ELA
Well,
tests?
Actually, there's an additional ELA in grade 5. Grade
Yeah.
4 always had 3 because one of the days was long comp.
Yeah.
Long
Right.
composition. There's no more long composition for grade 4, but both grade 4 and grade 5 do have 3 sessions of ELA.
And we were able, with paper-based, we were able to test the entire school at one time.
And how many days would that take? That'd probably be.
A day per session.
Okay,
So it'd be 2 days of math, 2 days of ELA, and then when we had long comp, that was an additional day for our 7th graders.
okay.
And then 2 days of science for 8th grade.
Okay, so basically, maybe we've gone from maybe 8 days to 12 days, and the difference is that we've gone electronic?
Correct.
And it's taking more time?
Correct.
Okay. But that's not, that isn't the intuitive thing. Right, yeah, right.
You would
That's
think it
the
would be the
counterintuitive.
But we wanted to make sure to preserve the experience for the kids, and we wanted to take some safeguards. So we did it very conservatively this year. We might have been able to done 2 grades at once, but I definitely wouldn't have slept.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
next year.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
We're gonna-
reduce the number of testing days.
Correct.
Right.
And test more at the same time, so.
Right.
Correct. That is the goal.
We were very conservative.
We were.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we wanted
It's
to
good,
go well.
yeah,
We wanted the
exactly.
teachers and the kids to have a good experience, so.
Right.
That, that was the reason why.
And it's new, and going to electronic anything, there's so many there's so many risks that you have to
So many more
accommodate that by
potential
adding more
places
time.
for it to go wrong.
You know,
Yeah.
I feel as soon as the teachers were able to have that initial experience of going through the steps, they felt a lot better than
Yeah.
themselves. But still, there was things that popped up that we hadn't seen before. We saw for the first time. Whereas the prior MCAS, we had seen it all.
Yeah.
You know, we had seen every type of thing that possibly could occur and already had an answer in place. So it's new.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the points that Kathleen mentioned was it was easy for the student to move from device to device. And if we go back 5 years, 4 years ago, that was a big part of our conversation, why iPads and now why Chromebooks. And I think that's a good example that it shouldn't be device specific. It should be the transference of skill and the adaptability of students to be able to use any device and engage in the functionality and the purposeful use of different formats and platforms and so forth. So I think, 5 years ago, we weren't talking about testing in this kind of environment. We had, dabbled with Park a little bit, but really wasn't sure where MCAS was headed. Still may not be, actually. But at this point, we're centered around this piece. And having both devices has really been a big part of our earlier conversation. And Kathleen just really highlighted why what we talked about back then really made sense for today. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know this was a big piece of the online version when it first came out, and it was a good change and a good shift, in that a lot of the embedded tools of support for students are part of the online version, where in fact with the paper testing, it often was only accessible through an accommodation and sort of a special gatekeeper to get through. So what they've really done is I think, provide more equitable access for tools that all students could benefit from, and they're embedded in that online version, things like highlighting and underlining and some of the other embedded tools. So there's been some improvement for all students going to the online version, and provide more equity of access for these kinds of things.
I'd like to just echo Christine's remarks about how great the team worked.
Yes.
Principals deserve a lot of credit. The tech team was outstanding. And there was not a playbook that we had from day one where we were following step by step. We were, I think, one step behind the state as it released
Yeah.
information.
Oh.
So I think
Kudos
it was
to you,
as
because
smooth
this-
of a process as it could have been, but we were learning as the state was giving us information. So I just.
I'm surprised they had a test ready by the time test day came.
We were too.
But I just want to compliment the tech team, the teachers, and the leadership team for the great work they've done, because I think that students really benefited from a great environment.
And I think, can I just add to that? You mentioned the teachers, they took every opportunity that was available to them to engage in the practice tests and get students used to utilizing those
They did.
tools. I was in one of the 5th grade classrooms and helping to go through the tutorial as well as the practice test. And the students were teaching me about the tools.
Yeah.
So
Me
it was
too.
fantastic. That's because they had exposure to them, they were utilizing them, and teachers were preparing them for the actual assessment. So, yes, a team effort, but the teachers really took those opportunities to help the students to become
Proficient.
proficient, yes,
Mhm.
and comfortable in taking
Yep.
the assessment.
What percentage of districts did what we did? Like, all in on the,
I don't know if we've seen the stats yet. Some
Majority,
neighboring
or-
different districts didn't elect or choose to test 3rd grade, and so there were variations, and you had
okay.
some flexibility. I think a
Cool.
lot of it depends upon their readiness factor
Right.
in terms of technology and so
Right.
forth.
you know,
Do you have any
I
raw
don't.
numbers?
Last year
yet?
was 50% of
Oh.
districts across the Commonwealth tested with Park online.
online?
And this year the requirement was grades 4 and 7.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so they required certain
We
grades
had
had to be online, okay.
Right,
Gotcha.
but we have the capability, though, to do it here. That's the main thing. We have,
Exactly.
yeah, we have the number of devices
Right.
and the connection.
Great.
And this was a good test as to
Yeah.
whether or not we did or didn't, really.
Right.
So,
Cool, kudos.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the school choice vote.
and this is where the Southborough School Committee decides to vote. And it's a little bit of strange wording there in the last sentence, probably not totally grammatically correct, but that the committee vote to not choose to participate in the FY 2018 school year in the school choice program. So not to choose to participate in the school choice program, the FY 2018 school year.
I would like to make a motion that the Southborough School District chooses not to participate in school choice for the 2017-2018 school year.
Any discussion?
Or second.
I'll second.
Second?
No, I think we've gone down this road for many, many years and just always thought it really wasn't conducive, both for financially and for the classroom sizes and such. So, to me, nothing has changed.
Right.
And any of it doesn't make any sense financially for us to do so.
Agreed.
Yeah, it really hasn't. We've talked about it for years and years, and one of the things that was brought up some years back too was that we really wouldn't know what would happen with the student completed 8th grade, that we didn't know whether or not Southborough would be, whether they could stay in the system, and Southborough would have to do the allocation to Algonquin. Now, maybe we know now that wouldn't happen, but there were so many risks
So
associated
Algonquin
with
would
it.
have to vote also to be a district of
Oh,
choice.
they would have to? Okay.
And they are not a district of choice.
Yeah, so, you have a disconnect there, then
Right.
either way, it's a problem. So I just don't see any advantage at all to
Yeah, I don't think there's
Southborough.
any advantage to us to doing so. All right.
Okay.
Is there a vote? Or was there a first and a second, right?
There
We
was,
have first-
I
yeah.
second.
So, so all in favor to not to choose to participate in school choice,
Thank you.
So next on the agenda, under old business, is the town meeting review.
Do you want to take the town meeting before Finn and Woodward? Because both are good news. Both items are good news.
Well, we had town,
Well, town meeting was the first one on here, but we could go in either order. Did you want to do something ahead of that, or?
No, mine, we have different agendas.
I'm working off
Yeah.
this agenda.
We'll go with yours. You're the chair. So just a recap, we were on the first night, which was delightful. It was a long first night, and there was much conversation about many warrant articles. And I am so very pleased that our budget, thanks to the school committee and the work that we've done together and our collaboration with the town throughout this process and our presentation to financial appropriations and the many meetings that led up to the budget being presented or not presented at town meeting because it was not held and there were no questions, and the Southborough K-8 budget passed unanimously. I would say, and I've shared this thought with many, that certainly there's a lot of budget work, and thank you, Cheryl, and everyone at central office, and all of the principals for participating in this process, Greg, and all of the administrative team at central office in developing the budget. It's a very short window to do an awful lot of work. But that really, I think it's a testament to the work that takes place in our classrooms each and every day and at the building level. Because of that, there's great confidence in the schools. There's great confidence in what experience the students are having each and every day. And I think sometimes when we talk about the process, we don't talk enough about what supports that process right at the school level. And it's things that we heard about and the experiences that our students that, just bring that confidence to a town meeting vote. And so I thank all of the teachers and the association. Really was extraordinary to work with this year. It's probably one of the more exciting, besides the presentation this evening, one of the great opportunities to just sit across the table with the Teachers Association and just experience their level of commitment and pride being part of this district. So to the associations, both of them, thank you, because they made some significant concessions with plan design changes through the town, and just sitting down and saying, we're proud to be part of this district.
Well, I was going to say too, Christine, that I think that you did a great job in setting this up for success. Okay, with the work that you did with advisory and just having a good presentation and doing a good job of getting people in line so they understood what the numbers meant and how we arrived at the numbers and all of that. I think it means a lot when you get to town meeting. And I think it makes it go smoother, I think.
Right.
I'll take that on behalf of the team. Thank you.
I agree with that, and, there was a lot of talk. Couture and I were at the candidates night a week or so ago, and there was a lot of talk among various candidates about the need to collaborate with, different boards and committees collaborating with each other. And I think we've done a great job at that the last number of years, collaborating with the town, making sure we're in line with their expectations, and it shows at town meeting when these things sail through.
I feel like the town, everyone is working together with, advisory, town administrator, selectmen, and it's made for a smoother budget process. And right, we do the work. You do the work up front, and everybody, by educating people, being transparent, being willing to provide any information. It's just, we have years like this year where everybody's on the same page when we get to town meeting, which is just nice. So I was happy about that too.
I think, probably revisiting just the work, all of the work of the committee members and the open dialogue and the willingness for the school committee to have some difficult conversations about, the development of a new committee. I think the MTC language going together at the town meeting and being collaborative, I think really is a strong message to the community that we're all in, not just on the school budgets, but very much part of the town and want to support the town any way we can in our collaborations. And even the Woodward School conversation relative to the safety, the public facility building that was moving forward. So, that discussion, it's clear that we're all talking about the things that are important to the town and most importantly, from our perspective, important to our students. So look forward to next year's process.
Here we go.
Begin soon.
Yes, it will, right? Sooner than we think, probably.
Oh,
and more good news?
Yeah, the next item is the Finn and Woodward principal search.
So the last time we had an update was last month, and I had mentioned that we had consensus around offering a position to Stephen Mucci, who would be the principal at Woodward School, and that we needed to engage in some negotiations, and they were successful. So Mr. Mucci will be seen at an upcoming ice cream social, which will be sponsored by SOS, and you know, we meet with the PTO presidents once a month, and it's a great opportunity just to talk and find out what's going on with the work that they do, and ask them if they would be interested in taking the ball and rolling with this, and they were just not a heartbeat away from saying yes. I think I didn't finish the sentence, and they were asking, what can we do? So the thought was, you know, for the little ones who are transitioning, the first graders from Finn to Woodward, it would be nice for them to know who their principal would be before they left for the summer, and also for the parents. So Mr. Mucci was quite excited about the thought of spending some time in district and getting to know everyone. So the plan is SOS and Mr. Mucci are having conversations about what that plan's gonna look like. So they're already connecting, and it will probably be in a summer night in June, around 7, when all the parents are able to bring their young ones and have some games and so forth. So, and he will also be in district and spending some time at Finn, just to make sure that we begin that transition early on. And speaking of Finn, thanks to Kathleen Valenti and Rebecca Pellegrino, who are co-chairing the search committee. Everyone's back, and we have our 2 parents on the committee, and Jerry is also our school committee rep, and I think you're interviewing tomorrow. With all hope, there will be someone or several recommended to me to chat with, and then have more site visits, and we'll probably be ready to appoint. So that's exciting to have 2 principals and return to that model, although we always have to have the disclaimer, Jim, you sure you want to leave? So,
Since he didn't show up, it's kind of a hint.
Under the weather today.
Under the weather.
Aw.
So it's all good news, and we're very excited about this, and I know the team is really excited to begin their new collaborative relationship with the new principals, and that's, I think, one of the strengths in Southborough and our administrative team. It truly is a K-8 experience, and they're very much connected in terms of the programs and the curriculum, and just the students, and knowing the community and the parents. It's an exciting leadership team to be a part of, so they're itching to get this going.
Great.
Okay, next on the agenda is the fiscal year 17, the monthly general fund expenditure report.
Equally exciting
Yes.
is the monthly presentation
exciting.
of the current year's budget expenditure report. And as always, we have this for your review. It's that time of year, and Cheryl's sharpening her
gonna say.
pencils, and as always, but getting a little more lead in there. We're being very watchful of the budget as we close it out for the FY 2017 year. So this evening, Cheryl, unless you wanted to add something?
Are there any big differentials, or no? There's no big differentials?
Not at this point. Not by fund code that we haven't, already discussed at this point. And so this evening, again, we would ask for a vote to approve until audited.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the fiscal 2017 Southborough Public School District monthly general fund expenditure report as of April 30, 2017, until audited.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, discussion? No? All in favor?
I'm good.
Great, thank you. And accompanying the budget report, expenditure report, is always an update on our enrollments, and you have that in front of you also. Again, I love the flip side just as much as the front side, because I think it really is interesting to watch the changes month to month by grade,
Like,
and see
what's the
what the
chance 3
variance
fifth
is.
graders are gonna show up on your
Yeah.
door in 1 month?
Kathleen, you had that last year too. Yeah,
said
sorry,
you-
caught you
oh,
off
sorry.
guard there.
You said you had 3 fifth graders show up in 1 month, like,
Yeah.
what's the
Oh,
chances?
triplets.
Yeah.
Oh,
my God.
that would be why.
I'll do it.
There you
That'll
go.
do it.
One-stop enrollment
Absolutely.
increase right there.
That makes sense.
Great addition to our school.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah, I get it now.
Wow.
Okay. Because I just thought that was so unusual. I'm like, what's the
All
chance?
on the same day.
Oh, there you go.
I would mention, though, that we're still, keeping a close eye over the kindergarten enrollments.
Yeah.
And, I've asked Jim, are we gonna see the 140 that you, and he said, no, not really, it's not gonna get up to 140. But, we're seeing a slight tick up right now. Our class sizes are still, within the range. One of the things that I think one of the many things I think that we did well around budget season was to keep our flexibility and options open with respect to setting the tuition for kindergarten for next year. We did
So if we
say,
have to add.
right, the deposit's not gonna change, it's not gonna go below the deposit, but it gives us that time to really watch the numbers and see where we're headed with this.
If we have to add another
Right.
kindergarten
And we've
teacher,
got
right.
that flexibility to do that built into the
That's
budget.
great.
So,
Good.
again, exciting to watch those numbers. And no vote necessary for enrollments, it's just, there they are.
And next on the agenda is educational policy, and there's nothing to discuss. And policy development and distribution, 2 second readings.
Oh, with the changes.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
turn this over to Greg,
Right.
if he has any comments.
So I guess we could vote on these tonight,
So
am I
we-
correct? Or-
It's the will of the committee, we can vote. We'll
Okay.
discuss further
Oh,
the
yeah.
home education I-230 from our last meeting. There was discussion to leave in eligibility for participation in athletics.
That's
So
right.
that is the reflected change on the document that you have in front of you.
Okay.
And then J300, we, under the paragraph or section, school committee approval process,
Right.
second paragraph, we did some wordsmithing and.
Made it
that
a little
fall
less
under that.
absolute, right?
We added the word until substantially.
Okay. That's cool.
So if I remember correctly, in the last school committee meeting, we spent quite a bit of time on these,
Right,
right?
so
And that
we-
was, so
Right.
I think we can go for a vote, if
I'll make a
everybody's
motion.
okay.
Yeah.
On home education policy I-230, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion, we approve home education policy I-230.
And second, discussion?
No, like you said, I think we spent a
Discussed it.
decent. I think we were happy with it. We just had to wait for a second reading, so.
All in favor? And student travel and regulations J300, is there a motion to approve this policy?
I'll move that we approve student travel and regulations J300.
And second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mm,
All in favor? 2 down.
woohoo.
That's almost all the results for the whole year, isn't it?
No, we did.
That we've had other ones. Not as good as last year. Last year was a better year. But,
No, we had the,
Some tough ones this year, though.
yeah, we have.
right, and we had the surplus equipment,
That's right.
which was my favorite.
Don't forget that one. Next item on the agenda is distribution of personnel report.
The personnel report is in your packet for review. I would
Okay.
like to give a shout out to Rebecca Pellegrino for the work, the fast work that has taken place, getting ahead of the hiring process.
Again.
You know, as soon as that town meeting, the budget was passed, the next day all the postings went out. And so even though we're not necessarily hiring staff per se this year, you know, we do have movement each and every year, and we have folks who are coming and going, and I think we are, as we were last year, right out ahead of the curve, which is great. And so it's a busy place at the office right now with folks coming in and filling out paperwork and interviews, but I just wanted to, you know, mention that and say how much we appreciate the work that's gone on so far, and that's quite a bit. So it's good.
Glad we added that. And we're hiring for new facilities? Is that?
We have the posting, we've modified the posting,
Okay,
received a lot of input,
okay.
and that has, I think there's about a week left of time for that, and I do know we are getting applications. So right now, we're just trying to figure out what the interview team will look like on that. So hope to have some good news soon.
Great.
Next on the agenda is the distribution of district doings.
And this was April's, May's, coming in one call near you soon. I just want to comment, we did get some feedback. If you notice, we're trying to limit the verbiage. It was, can you just give us links, and if we're really interested in it, we'll click on the link and read the rest. So trying to move in that direction a little bit. We're responsive to input. So we may end up just seeing one page with a lot of links in the future. And
we have some minutes to review. The first is the action on the minutes of the open meeting of April 12th, 2017. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that we accept the minutes for the Southborough School Committee of Wednesday, April 12, 2017, as revised in the packet.
There's one red-lined edit
Ah,
in the
yeah.
revised
Oh, that's a
document.
good one, yeah.
We take no credit. Paul called in for
Yeah.
that one.
Well, I always, if Paul's read these, I always kind of like,
Yeah.
he's a better editor than I am.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? And-
Executive session.
Yeah, now the executive session, the minutes, executive session of Wednesday, April 12th, 2017.
And
We're
this
gonna
will be a vote
retain.
to approve and retain,
Retain.
because the,
Right.
the topic is still in discussion at this point.
And do we have a motion to approve and retain?
Make a motion, we approve and retain the minutes for the Southborough School Committee executive session on Wednesday, April 12th, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right. Good.
And next is approval of bills and payrolls, which will be passed around later. Agenda items for next month?
June,
June.
subcommittee conversations.
Oh,
Yep.
right.
Oh, yeah.
And what else is in June?
You know, we could, we don't often preview the summer programming that we are offering
Oh,
for
that'd
students.
be really nice.
That'd be
So, maybe to have Marie Allen do a little bit of a
That would be great.
presentation on the summer programming. It's just a nice way to,
Yeah. no, it is.
foreshadow some good things that are gonna take place over the summer. And Rhoda also, ELL director, Rhoda Webb, also offers a lot of great summer opportunities. So just to let folks know that education continues throughout the summer and the district never closes. I mean, there's always kids engaged in learning, so.
Right, and an update on maybe on, sometimes that couples with what's going on in the buildings
Mhm.
over the summer. I know that
Right.
that's always kind of a shuffle of who's where and what work is being done. So that'd be kind of, I know some things were up in the air, so that'd be kind of a nice.
Could be Phil's parting
There you
presentation.
go.
He's retiring on the 26th, so.
Again.
Again.
Re-retiring.
Okay, and the next item, oh, I'm sorry, Paul?
Last year in June, we had an item, we talked about presentation topics for the coming year.
Excellent idea.
It's always good to fill next year's agendas up early.
Okay. And anything else, or?
Not that I can think of now.
No.
Okay, next on the agenda is audience sharing, and I think we've lost our audience, but maybe somebody
Hey.
else.
Oh.
No, Dave,
It was
you're
Mr.
still
Clark.
there.
Mr. Clark downstairs, it's possible.
Yeah. We're still waiting
Yep.
for the band.
There we
so,
go.
You know,
We might have to, we might have to wait a long time.
right, all right.
That's for the exit, right?
It is,
They're
they're
downstairs
ready for you
waiting
in
for
the
us?
lobby.
Oh, okay, it's, we're gonna walk through, I see, just making sure.
So if, I get, maybe Beth?
Oh.
Motion, I was gonna say, motion, we'll need a motion to go into executive session.
Let me do it. I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining due to the chairman's determination that a discussion regarding this matter in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the committee, and we have no intent to return to open session.
Second?
Roll call?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, so, now, this one, do I adjourn the meeting, or would we just go into
No,
executive
we
session?
adjourn
Into
ourselves
executive
from
session.
Executive session.